Good morning, everyone. My name is Reese Hegel, and I'm from CMHA Oxford. This video covers the second half of the stress tolerance module and explains 6 interrelated reality acceptance skills. They are radical acceptance, turning the mind, mindfulness of current thoughts and emotions, half smile, willing hands, and finally, willingness. We'll deal mainly with radical acceptance because it's such a big topic, and touch briefly on willingness and its opposite, willfulness, at the end. Radical acceptance means fully accepting life as it is, even when things don't work out like you want. It's one of the most difficult skills and one of the most misunderstood. Why? There are 2 reasons. First, people confuse radical acceptance with giving up, giving in, or agreeing with a problematic situation. You don't have to give up on taking action if the situation can be changed. You only do that if it can't. Whenever you're trying to decide between radical acceptance and problem solving, think of the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That said, sometimes acceptance is a prerequisite for problem solving because first we have to acknowledge that there actually is a problem. Until you accept that that little green thing in your soup is a bug, not a piece of parsley, you won't haul that sucker out. Until we accept that systemic oppression exists in our police services, nothing's going to change. The second reason that people dislike the concept of radical acceptance is they think they're being asked to stuff their feelings. Most of us have either been told at some point to suck it up, buttercup, or asked when we're going to quote unquote get over something. But it's actually the opposite. Radical acceptance involves releasing and allowing our feelings. If you've just been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, no one expects you to snap your fingers and say, okay, I've accepted that. You're going to go through a grieving process. This is why radical acceptance takes time. You need to come to terms with all the changes having diabetes involves. Mind, body, heart, and soul. The sadness, the anger, the new limitations, until eventually all those feelings pass and you adjust to the situation. Once you fully accept that you're now diabetic, it becomes a familiar state. You're no longer fighting reality or insisting that things should be different. Now that we've explained this skill, you may be thinking, what's in it for me? Why should I try to practice radical acceptance? Well, how about less suffering? To quote Forrest Gump in that wonderful movie, inevitably, shit happens. Life is going to throw something at you that you're not going to like, and you're probably not going to be able to change it. Pain is inevitable. However, the good news is that suffering is optional. DBT defines suffering as pain plus non-acceptance. Now, we all resist reality when we're initially adjusting. We think situations are right or fair and shouldn't be the way they are, and a little denial is natural. But if we never stop working ourselves up by constantly dwelling on the injustice, we're going to be under continual stress. Flooding our body with stress hormones will affect our appetite and sleep. We'll be irritable, distracted, no longer fully present, forever rehashing the painful past. Marsha Linehan, founder of DBT, refers to this state as being in hell. Eventually, we get stuck in a rut, resisting reality. We can't complete our healing process until we accept life as it is. And though no one looks forward to fully feeling and releasing painful emotions like rage, guilt, and grief, once we finally let go of the pain, we find freedom and eventually peace. This is why Marsha says that the way out of hell is through misery. Let's show how this process works. We'll pretend that you're a manager who's just found out you'll be laid off in 2 weeks. You've always worked hard, gone above and beyond. Worse still, they're promoting your best friend to replace you and expect you to train her. Think back to this serenity prayer. Is there anything you can change? You can't stop them from laying you off, but you might think about doing some research or getting some legal advice before you sign that severance package. Perhaps setting up your references. You can also clear the air with your friend and acknowledge this is awkward for both of you. Let's move on to what we can't change, how we'd accept actually being laid off. This is where that second skill, turning the mind, comes in. Turning the mind describes the process of choosing to radically accept over and over and over again for however long that takes. There are 4 steps involved. Number 1, notice that you're not accepting. You start by being mindful of your current thoughts. Mentally describe what you're thinking and any feelings which come up, along with any body sensations. So, I'm thinking about that layoff again, how unjust and how unfair it was. My neck and my jaw are tense, and I'm feeling angry, hurt, and sad. Make an inner commitment to turn the mind and accept what feels unacceptable. This is difficult. And step 2, stating a mantra like "this too shall pass" or "it is what it is" can also help. Step 3, do this repeatedly as needed, whenever possible. It can happen several times a minute or countless times a day. Whenever you get distracted and start dwelling on how unjust it all is, bring your mind back to acceptance again. Finally, step 4, develop a plan for catching yourself whenever you drift out of acceptance. This may take many different forms. Here are 3. First, think of alternate interpretations which make you feel less reactive, such as, "It wasn't anything personal. They just couldn't afford to keep me on. They laid a lot of people off." Or, "It isn't my friend's fault she got promoted. I can't expect her to turn that down, especially when I'm leaving the company." Or 3, "I've come through hard times before and I know that I can do it again." Another strategy is to use your physical tension cues to trigger a relaxation response. You can shrug your shoulders, unclench your jaw, move it from side to side whenever you notice the tension. You can take a deep breath and breathe into the anger and the sadness, allowing it to rise and fall. Or bring your thoughts back here and now to the present using grounding techniques such as feeling your hands in your lap, your thighs in the chair, or your feet on the floor whenever you catch yourself going in that hamster wheel and ruminating over and over about that painful past. Finally, check in with yourself periodically to see if you've become preoccupied, or set an alarm on your phone. Let's move on to the half smile and willing hands. These are both physical postures which will help with turning the mind when you're trying to radically accept some situation which you don't like. Research shows that our moods are influenced by muscle tension, and muscle tension is also influenced by our mood. We'll prove it. Start with scrunching your face in a frown, raising your shoulders, and clenching your fists. What happens to your mood? Do you feel angrier and less relaxed? Now drop that posture and close your eyes. Picture something that makes you happy. Maybe being in nature, playing with a pet, or being with a friend. Get it really clear in your mind. Imagine all the details. what you normally see and hear, what you touch and smell. We're not holding the image long enough to make a huge difference, but you may feel yourself starting to relax. I'm going to demonstrate a brief half smile. You do it by relaxing your facial muscles with the lips slightly turned up at the corners. It looks a little bit like this. My husband often looks this way when he's had an amusing thought, which makes me ask him what he's thinking. It's a happy, natural facial pose, which is subtle enough to do anywhere. I don't hold it for more than a second or two because you don't want to hold it that long. If you did, it'll make your jaw ache. It's completely different from acting fake, plastering on a huge, insincere smile and grimacing like a chimp, when inwardly you're mad as hell. That will only increase your stress. You're not focusing on pleasing other people. You're trying to do something soothing for you. If you're not comfortable half smiling, just focus on relaxing your jaw whenever you practice turning your mind towards radical acceptance. The second posture is called willing hands. Simply sit with your hands on your lap, turn your palms up, and relax your fingers. Not only are you acting out being open and accepting by placing your hands like this posture will also help lower your stress and induce a relaxation response. Willingness is our final skill. It helps you respond effectively to whatever life has to offer. We'll define willingness as being completely open, accepting, and willing to do whatever is needed, symbolized by willing hands. Willfulness is the opposite. It's responding to the situation by resisting or fighting reality or trying to control it. One extreme is giving up and continually complaining without taking action when action is called for, or constantly saying, yes, but. The other is trying to control reality. Visualize giving up by literally sitting on your hands. You can visualize the controlling behavior like a puppet master pulling strings. So let's see how this might work out. We'll pretend that you're playing cards and you get dealt a crappy hand. The willing response is to accept it. You simply play the best you can. A willful response might be to complain, give up, and refuse to play, or try to control the situation by working out some way to cheat. You can turn willfulness into willingness using the same steps described above, by recognizing that you're being willful and turning the mind to become more willing. Beneath willfulness is usually fear. This is why asking yourself what's the threat can help you problem solve around it. For instance, if you hate your job and continually complain about it, but keep making excuses and say yes, but whenever people ask, why don't you leave? What's the threat underneath your willful behavior? Is it lack of confidence? Having to update your resume? Fear of being rejected? Or never being able to replace your salary? For me, it was low self-esteem, a need for more retraining, and dreading the rejection that's a natural part of the interview process. However, once I went back to school and then started going to interviews, I found out that though I hated rejection, it wasn't the end of the world. It took several months after graduation to finally find a job in my field, but eventually I did. An additional bonus was all that practice really improved my interview skills. Let's examine what the threat might be underneath controlling behavior. Let's say you cope with your spouse's drinking by trying to hide their liquor bottles. Perhaps you think that if you don't, they're going to continue to drink too much, and you're not sure how to handle that. Unfortunately, if they really want to drink, they'll find them or get more. By trying to control their behavior, you're avoiding taking action on the only thing you can actually change. What will you do if they never stop? Instead of hiding their booze, going to counseling or a 12-step group like Al-Anon might be more effective. If you'd like more information on willingness and willfulness, there are other internet videos which go into this topic in more detail. I'll conclude by saying that even though these skills have been valuable in my life, I'm passionate about teaching them and I use them very frequently, I still sometimes resist reality and act willfully and ineffectively. And because I'm only human, I don't think that will ever change. That said, my life is so much better than it was before learning these skills. And the more I practiced them, the easier they became. So be kind and gentle with yourself and expect progress, not perfection. Good luck with your own practice and have a wonderful day.